A very good evening, aspirants. Welcome to BAJIRAO IAS Academy. Today, we will discuss some of the most important news articles in both the Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers. These are the important news articles for today's discussion. These articles are important for the mains perspective. India's semiconductor mission might need a compass. You know, uh, in today's time, the growing importance for semiconductors and India's ambitions to achieve self-reliance, especially with respect to the semiconductor manufacturing, is discussed in a detailed manner in this article. And the next news article is marriage market penalize women. So how marriage market penalizes working women and how it has been limiting their choices has been discussed in this news article. The next news article is India's new trade policy to boost exports. India has recently launched a new trade policy to boost exports and also uh, reform the export oriented economy so that India will achieve $2 trillion of exports by the year 2030. This is an ambitious target set up by the foreign trade policy. Right, and the next news article is UK to join Trans-Pacific Partnership. Trans-Pacific Partnership is a partnership, a trade partnership, an economic partnership among all the countries in the Pacific region. However, earlier India was withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. In this respect, we will discuss what is Trans-Pacific Partnership and what are the member countries of Trans-Pacific Partnership and how it is important to further give a fillip to global trade. And we will also look into some of the important news articles for prelims as well. One is certain the Computer Emergency Response Team India. It may be exempted from the ambit of RTI. So in this context, we will look into the consequences of this exemption, and we'll also look into North Atlantic Treaty Organization wanted to have a strong ties with Indian side. So they want India to be a greater participant in NATO. And the other important news article with respect to prelims is electoral bond scheme. So today we will discuss all these news articles. So the first news article. Uh, so before going into the news articles, let's just this is the question given for you today. Uh, so just answer this question. Okay, just type the answer in the comment box, and the correct answer for this question will give in the next session. Okay, so let's get into the news articles. So the first news article is India's semiconductor mission might need a compass. So, so uh, I mean, India's semiconductor India has been showing a greater importance, a greater attention towards indigenous semiconductor manufacturing within India. In this context, there are several roadblocks, several challenges to to for India to emerge as a major semiconductor manufacturer. After the COVID-19 pandemic, supply chain resilience is very important. So therefore, India has been dependent on imports with respect to semiconductors. US, China, and Taiwan, they have dominated the global semiconductor market. So in this respect, let's look into this article in a detailed manner. For today's discussion is India's semiconductor mission might need a compass. So India come up with a policy, semiconductor policy in December 2021. So now India has been cooperating with USA in semiconductor manufacturing because USA have necessary experience and expertise, and it will help India manufacture the semiconductors at a large scale. See, you can see here. So Intel is a technology company which has been engaged with manufacturing, which is engaged in manufacturing semiconductors. and India owing the Intel to set up a manufacturing base in India and manufacture semiconductors. But this requires a fabrication plant costs around 10 billion. Okay, this fabrication plant record costs around 10 billion. It is a huge cost, but the question is whether the Intel is ready to set up such a fabrication facility in India is a major question because uh, it is said that the Intel is majorly preoccupied uh, within US manufacturing semiconductors within US. So on the part of Intel, it has been showing a less interest to set up such a manufacturing base in India. If it is interested to set up a manufacturing base, then it would likely be set up in Dholera, Gujarat. Okay, so Dholera, Gujarat, there will be a plant if Intel come up with such a plant. However, the facts on the ground, the facts on the ground does not support the view that Intel would come to India and set up a manufacturing base, right? So in this context, where does Indian semiconductor policy need to go? So how India's semiconductor policy need to go, and how Indian semiconductor policy should be mostly indigenous, and how we can leverage our existing domestic capabilities will discussed in a detailed manner. See, remember, India have the semiconductor laboratory, and it was set up uh, way past in 1983. So in 1983, India set up a semiconductor laboratory to manufacture the semiconductors, or to in a way develop technologies to manufacture semiconductors uh, with growing importance for the global uh, manufacturing industry. So it was set up by the central government, right? The semiconductor laboratory was set up by the central government. The vision was creating an electronic ecosystem in an era of. So what is a Keltron? Keltron is a Kerala electronics company. Uptron is a UP based electronic company. So they are a state based electronic companies, right? So Webel also the same. So these were entities prevalent, and they have a monopoly in the consumer electronic markets, right? So in this context, India set up a semiconductor laboratory. However, there were several shocks uh, for this semiconductor laboratory because of the 1991 crisis, and also a fire broke out in 1989 that made the semiconductor laboratory to perform at a very suboptimal level, along with some policy issues, right? This make this semiconductor laboratory to perform at a suboptimal levels. So the article also discussed that the facts on ground, especially connection with semiconductor laboratory, uh, do not support. Uh, I mean, if we look at the facts on ground, the facts do not support the country's ongoing plans to revive the plant. So it is 180 nm node pilot line, right? So if we carefully observe the facts on ground, uh, it is not the facts not reflecting the ambitious plans to revive the plant. Okay, because uh, the strategic needs of the country did come by, but the facility has by and large remained an unfulfilled dream. So this we discussed that this facility was largely underperformed. There were a number of reasons for the underperformance of this facility, right? So because of these reasons, it remained an unfulfilled dream in its mission of creating a domestic semiconductor ecosystem. So this was the major reason why we do not have a strong presence of domestic semiconductor ecosystem. Okay, fine. So finally, I mean, in order to execute this vision, in order to execute this vision, the semiconductor company limited uh, needs a full-time director. Okay, So this is one such suggestion given by the author, right? Uh, because now the semiconductor does not have a full-time director. So it should have a full-time director so that it could function more efficiently and effectively. So this has been emphasized in this article, right? So along with this, the semiconductor laboratory Mohali can be viewed as a technology stack similar to we have Aadhaar, we also developed Arogya Setu during COVID-19 pandemic and a unified payments interface. Remember UPI, Arogya Setu and Aadhaar are largely successful when it comes to India's digital transformation. But on the other hand, the SCL is failed to create a strong and robust domestic semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem. So therefore, what should be the way forward? The author also suggested a way forward for the semiconductor manufacturing, right? So if you look at the way forward, the institutional framework, there should be an institutional framework. Shift in focus already exists with transfer of SCL back to Ministry of Electronics. Please remember, uh, now the SCL, the semiconductor company laboratory, now under the control of Department of Space. Okay, so this was under the Department of Space, but it should be transferred back to the Ministry of Electronics because it has the necessary uh, experience and expertise to revive the SCL, right? Semiconductor laboratory. So therefore, it should be transferred back to the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and this has been emphasized in a first way for. And the secondly, the author also talks about uh, there was a no joint venture. I mean, uh, even after the announcement of transfer from Department of Space to Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, there is a no joint venture partner. So no joint venture partner formed. So even the employees of SCL are also confused about the state of affairs within SCL. So, so the focus of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology aimed at attracting Intel into India to set up a fab. So even since this SCL is largely underperformed and employees are also in a confusing state, so therefore the focus of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology to create a robust domestic manufacturing ecosystem is to attract the Intel into India so that they can set up a fabrication plant in Dholera. So earlier we have discussed Dholera, Gujarat, there will be a fabrication plant. However, it is not free from challenges. Remember, there are several other challenges. So the challenges include uh, Intel primarily operate in 22 nm node and 300 mm. So it requires over 10 billion. It's a very huge investment. Uh, I mean, such a huge investment, and uh, it requires infrastructure, state of the art infrastructure. It requires skilled employment, skilled employees, and government policy support. So, therefore, keeping in mind such a huge capital investment, the Intel may not be interested to set up its plant in India. So there is an alternate approach. So that alternative approach could be leveraged. So what was the alternative approach? It is human and capital assets at the SCL. See, we have SCL Semiconductor Company Laboratory, right? So the semiconductor laboratory. So when we set up a semiconductor laboratory, we also have a human capital and capital assets with SCL. So therefore, uh, the existing capacity with the SCL should be rightly leveraged, to create an indigenous semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem. So this is what the author has been suggesting because of a huge capital investment, and Intel showing less interest to set up a plant in India. So therefore, this is an alternative opportunity. And the second option costs just an investment of 50 to $100 million. So this is a very affordable, and so it just costs 50 to 100 million, may result in the development of Indian solutions for automotive electronics. Okay, so however, the upgrade has to be backed by subsidies. The government should provide subsidies, incentives for the fabless design houses. For example, if the private sector is engaged in semiconductor manufacturing, the government should provide incentives, should extend tax benefits, subsidies to such private sector manufacturing companies, so that it is an incentive not just for the domestic companies but also foreign companies look to invest in India. So, production linked incentive scheme is one such scheme. Um, so therefore, one such scheme that extend benefits to the manufacturing companies. So such benefits need to be extended to these manufacturing companies. So these subsidies have to be aimed at global design companies. So attracting the global design companies to set up fab manufacturing units in India, and they should be aimed at India specific markets such as motor drivers and BLDC fans and e-bikes, electronic bikes, etc. So unfortunately, existing production-linked incentive scheme, as we already discussed, India have the production-linked incentive scheme, and this scheme extend incentives for the incremental production for companies, both domestic companies and foreign companies. So, others saying that the PLI scheme unfortunately uh, misses the opportunity to provide incentives for the global fabless design companies. So this is a major drawback. Okay. Right. The recent efforts by Indian Semiconductor Mission to open up subsidies, right, or to open up subsidies to global small and medium-sized entrepreneurs in the upstream supply chain is a welcome, because existing facility like SCL will benefit from this. So if India ready to extend subsidies to global fabless manufacturing units, small and medium-sized manufacturing units, then they will invest in India, and this will benefit the SCL also to furthering its capacity and capabilities. So, but this is not enough unless coupled with incentives defined. So, this is whatever measures have suggested, not enough, but it should be coupled with the subsidies which were discussed earlier, along with the upgrades targeted at different sets of players. In semiconductor ecosystem, manufacturing ecosystem, there are different players, right? So the upgrades should be targeted. For example, SCL was set up in 1983, so it should be upgraded technologically. So they upgraded, so the upgrades targeted at different sets of players, right? So the stakes are high, but there's a lack of clarity, and inaction may lead India to completely missing out this opportunity, the semiconductor fabrication bus. Because uh, uh, at this point of time, the semiconductor manufacturing holds the key for the development of any economy, right? So therefore, if India lacks capacity, and if India shows inaction in terms of domestic semiconductor manufacturing, then it would miss a crucial opportunity, right? So finally, to execute this vision, next 5 years, so SCL needs a full-time director. Earlier we already discussed this. We have a vision of creating a robust semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem within the country. So to execute such a vision, we need a full-time SCL director, right? So and so this is because a multifaceted market that needs to be served. Um, this is a multifaceted market. A full-time director would make these organizations work more efficiently and effectively. Remember, the semiconductors are used in mobile phones, computers, and any other electronic devices. If India does not have a strong semiconductor manufacturing base, because in the case of China, China monopolized semiconductors, USA also, and Taiwan also. In case China attacks Taiwan, then it would impact semiconductor supplies to India. So therefore, keeping in mind India's huge uh, digital needs and India's digital transformation, it is very important for India to have a, a robust, a resilient semiconductor manufacturing base so that India could meet its own needs and India could also fulfill the export needs of the world, and it would create employment opportunities and it would also increase our GDP growth rate. Okay, so this is all about the semiconductor manufacturing and India's ambitions to set up a semiconductor manufacturing base. So let's go into the next news article. So this next news article discusses about the marriage market penalizes women who work, and then doing so, I mean, nowadays there has been a very low participation of women in the workforce. Right, in the total workforce, there's a very minute participation of women, and marriage is a one such reason. Because of this, because of marriage as an institution which largely discourage women employment. So therefore, it has been discussed in a detailed manner. What are the reasons for women not being part of the workforce, and how it impacts Indian economy, and what should be done. We will look into all these aspects in this news article. In Indian society, paper one, this article is very important, right? For example, there are questions repeating every year that what is the impact of globalization on Indian economy? So, sorry, Indian woman, not economy, Indian woman. I'm sorry. So, Indian woman. So, therefore, we need to understand this. Okay. So, marriage has been certainly limiting the choices of women. So, even if they are working after marriage, they are more or less uh, uh, doing the household work and not interested to work, uh, not interested to be part of the workforce, right? So some statistics related to women and their employment status. There's some statistic that more women and men get married in India than anywhere else in the world. So there has been a highest percentage of both male and female are married. So there's a report, the Global Gender Gap Report. So the Global Gender Gap Report 143, India's rank 143 out of 146. So if a Global Gender Gap Report studies 140 countries, India's rank is 143. That is a bottom rank. So also remember, for the prelims point of view, this is important. Which organization releases Global Gender Gap Report? It is World Economic Forum. So every year World Economic Forum releases Gender Gap Report. So in 2022, India's ranking was 143 out of 146 countries. So this ranking is in terms of women economic participation and opportunity category for women. So this rank. So this indicating that Indian women have a poor workforce participation. Okay. So this is in contrast to countries. at similar income and education fertility levels. So female labor force participation in urban area is just 24%. So female labor force participation is just to 24%, and it continues to be lowest periodic. It according to the periodic labor force participation survey, female labor force participation in the workforce in urban areas is just 24%. So this is mainly because of the partner preferences. Male were giving preference to women who are unemployed rather than the employed women. So you can see here, if men systematically discriminate against employed women. So employed women, there has been a discrimination, a systematic discrimination against employed women after marriage, and this leads to women uh, not being part of the workforce. So when it comes to choosing a life partner, they are choosing a woman. Uh, she is not employed. Okay, right. So they have conducted a study about this when women workforce participation, the impact of marriage on a woman, and how it has been limiting their choices. So this survey has revealed uh, that yes, marriage is a striking penalty for employed women. So marriage is a penalty for employed women. So in the marriage market. So this is mostly in North India. This is also highlighted. The marriage penalizes the employed woman. So in the workforce, female workforce, there are few categories of occupation. So one is a feminine, for example, school teacher. School teacher, this is a more feminine job. And the second is masculine. This is a technical supervisor kind of a thing. And third is gender neutral. So this is a data entry operator. These are three categories uh, of women employment. So based on the existing, this is also a data from labor force participation survey. Okay, and so according to this data, so this data reveals that male preferring mostly the feminine occupation, right? The feminine workforce rather than the masculine workforce. Because of the inherent belief that women should not be part of the masculine employment, right? So this response, each female profile. So nearly see, so employed women received nearly 15% fewer responses from male suitors related to their. So for example, in a matrimony site, the two women profiles. One is a working woman, and the other is uh, uh, non-working woman. So non-working woman received more responses than the working woman. So this indicating that the male preference for non-working woman, and the inherent stereotypes and discrimination and inbuilt inequality in the society. So it is also highlighted that a woman in a masculine job, uh, she received a lesser preference than the woman in the feminine job, right? So than the woman in the feminine job, because uh, there is a belief that woman in a masculine job is sexually impure, right? So this has been highlighted here also. So because she have a more male related interactions, she considered as a sexually impure. So therefore, she received a very low responses from her male counterparts, right? And it suggests that these findings suggest that male-dominated occupations may be characterized by more inflexible working schedules, right? So the evidence suggests that women who work in general women who work in general, and those who work in more male-dominated occupations may even be considered sexually impure, right? So, for example, as we have discussed earlier, uh, women who work in a male-dominated occupation, there are a few occupations, for example, execution, management. So they are a male-dominated. I mean, society traditionally view them as a male-dominated occupations, and women who work in the male dominated occupations are considered as sexually impure because they work together with men. So, since they work together with men, so they are considered as sexually impure. So, no doubt, this implies that the marriage market penalizes, so penalty ultimately contributes to India's persistent uh, low female labor force participation. Remember, earlier we have discussed that women, only 24 percentage of women in urban areas is part of the total labor force. So this persistently impacting India's women labor force, right? India's women labor force participation in the economy. So, a developing country like India with poor women participation cannot achieve its ambitious growth targets. Even if it achieves the growth, it cannot be an inclusive growth. So this has been highlighted here. So India seeks to achieve rapid economic growth, can ill afford educated women staying out of the workforce. Yes, no doubt that women are educated, but after marriage, they are not part of the employment. They are not part of the workforce. Generally, women are discouraged to be part of workforce, even though they are educated and skilled. So therefore, India can ill afford educated women not joining the workforce. So the article also highlighted that the changing norms and attitudes of men along with women is critical for increasing women's participation and reducing their occupational segregation. So there should be a change in attitudes of men, a change in norms within the society, encouraging women workforce participation, considering women as a gender equal to men, so that an inclusive development could be possible in India. So, with this inclusive development, India's several ambitious targets could be fulfilled. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals also talk about the woman empowerment. For example, Sustainable Development Goal number 5 talks about reducing the gender inequalities. So not just gender inequalities, it is linked to everything. So therefore, it is important to make women part of workforce. If women actively contributes to the economy, it would have a significant impact on India's overall GDP. Right? So there are several programs like Stand Up India and Startup India, which provide significant incentives and benefits for women entrepreneurs. So to start a new a unit, so that they could provide employment opportunities for the others, and they can also actively contribute for the economic development. Okay, so this is all about how marriage has been a barrier for women to be part of the workforce, and how it has been limiting their choices, and the impact of lack of women participation in the workforce on Indian economy. So the next news article is uh, India recently introduces a new trade policy. Okay, so recently introduces a new trade policy. So this policy with the objective of uh, giving a boost to exports, right? So in this article, it is discussed that uh, framing or introducing new trade policy is a welcome step. It certainly improve India's export competitiveness, export preparedness. But on the other hand, along with this policy, there are several steps, several measures needed to improve the trade share. So in this backdrop, let's discuss this article in a detailed manner. Okay, so as we know that government introduces a new trade policy to boost exports. So along with this trade policy, more measures are needed to improve the share of trade. So this is the foreign trade policy 2023. Okay, so this is a foreign trade policy 2023, and the last trade policy was uh, formulated in 2015, and it is in force till 2020, right? So it is ended in 2020, but has remained effect till now. Um, so what was the aim? What is the aim of the new of trade policy? So it has a fourfold aim. Okay, so this foreign policy has a fourfold aim. This includes: one is to shift from an incentive to tax remission based regime. Okay, the first is shift from an incentive. For example, there are set of export uh, oriented companies, the government providing them incentives for their export. Rather than providing incentives, a tax remission based regime to improve the ease of doing business, because the tax remission based incentive will improve the ease of doing business. Remember, for any functional economy, ease of doing business is very important to attract a significant private investment and capital formation. So therefore, in order to improve the ease of doing business, the government has there has been a shift in incentive based policy to tax remission based regime. And the second is promote exports through collaborations and focus on emerging areas. What are the emerging areas? For example, the center introduced launched one nation one district program, where district with unique products are identified and their export potential could be leveraged. Along with that, the digital technologies and the manufacturing, textiles, apparel, leather, so these emerging areas could be further leveraged so that India's export could become more competitive and more uh, effective, right? So the government has now articulated a goal of achieving 2 trillion uh, export of goods and services. Right? So according to an estimate, according to some data from the government, India has achieved $750 billion of exports. By 2023, India's total exports become $750 billion. This is a significant jump considering 2014 and 15, right? So 2014 and 15, that was somewhere between of $4 billion dollar something, right? So now the target is 2 trillion in export of goods and services by 2030, up from 900. So earlier we have discussed the trade policy. The target of the trade policy was $900 billion. So this was hoped to achieve by 2020. Okay, but this new policy target at 2 trillion in export of goods and services by 2030. Remember, at the end of 2023, India touched an export of $760 billion. So up from 676 billion in 21-22. Now India's total exports touched to 760 billion. Okay. The new policy on reducing points of friction across the system. So the measures focus on providing automatic approvals for various permissions. You know, while uh, achieving a robust and competitive export regime, there should be an immediate and faster pace approvals and permissions. For instance, under the new framework, the processing time for revalidation of various authorizations, which currently ranges from 3 days to 1 month, so is expected to, the time taken to give approvals, permissions for the export will be reduced to just 1 day. Earlier, it used to take 3 days to 1 month, and now it is just brought down to 1 day. So, this is a significant development. The policy has also lowered the application fees. Remember, MSCs have a significant contribution in the economy. They reduce the regional inequalities, they provide employment, and they also have a huge share in India's export market. So, therefore, keeping in mind the importance of MSMEs in the overall trade effectiveness, the policy has lowered the application fees for MSMEs. So this is a step in right direction because it facilitates e-commerce exports and the widening of basket covered under remission of duties and taxes on export. For example, we have discussed that there has been a fundamental shift from incentive based to remission based. So therefore now the basket of goods which are part of remission duties and taxes on exported products will be further widened. So more number of products will be covered so that it incentivizes more and more exports. Okay, it further incentivizes more and more exports. So these steps boost manufacturing as well. Remember, India have taken several steps to boost manufacturing. For example, Make in India is one such scheme to boost manufacturing, and the self-reliant India, where India will have a, a robust manufacturing capabilities. Okay. So rationalizing of thresholds for recognizing of exporters and merchandise trade reforms. So all these are part of the newly announced trade policy and they are indicating its robustness. So along with this, the government has been focusing on internationalization of rupee, right? So internationalization of rupee makes India less reliant on dollar. Okay, if India less reliant on dollar, then with most of the countries, India can transact in rupees itself, and Indian currency exposure to international market will also be further reduced. Okay, this will have a lower volatility. Fine. So a one-time amnesty scheme. So what is a one-time amnesty scheme? For example, if there is a dispute or if there is an issue, one-time amnesty scheme ensures that the issue will be resolved. The issue will be resolved for first time, okay, without going through a complex legal disputes, complex legal disputes and legal procedures, and one-time amnesty will be given, right? So this policy, also remember this policy comes at a time there's a considerable uncertainty across the globe. Uh, Increasing inflation, higher interest rates, and increasing energy prices. And uh, yesterday we discussed that World Bank come up with a report saying that the global economic slowdown is on the cards. So now in these uncertain conditions, the trade policy has unveiled. So also remember, India accounts a very low proportion of goods exports to overall global trade. It is just 1.8 percentage. This is very less compared to China. Countries like China, they have more than 8 to 10% global share, right? So while in services, India contributes roughly 4%. India have a significant advantage over services in the international overall international trade. But on the other hand, in terms of goods, it is just contributes 1.78% of the total share. So there is a considerable scope for the improvement of the country on this count. So this new trade policy will make India improve its contribution in the export of goods, right? So there has been a significant scope. But this new policy needs some supplementation. So this new policy needs to be supplemented with lowering import tariffs, ensuring a competitive exchange rate, and signing a deeper and free trade agreements. Remember, if uh, India sign a free trade agreement with other countries where India have the competitive advantage, then it will benefit India. It will further increase its exports, right? For example, recently India signed a free trade agreement with UAE and Australia also, and India is planning to sign a free trade agreement with Canada, European Union, and UK. Now, this is in the talks stage, and both sides have expressed confidence that they will finalize the free trade agreement as early as possible. Now, India signing free trade agreements with as many countries as possible will further increase India's trade and exports. Okay. So, this will help India to achieve its ambitious target of $5 trillion economy by 2025, and also the $2 trillion export base by 2030 as envisioned by this policy. So this is about India's new trade policy 2023. Okay, the next news article is UK to join Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade treaty. So Trans-Pacific Partnership is a partnership among an economic partnership among major littoral countries in the Pacific region. Okay, now UK earlier it was not a member, but most of the Western countries, for example, Canada, USA, they were members of Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now UK has been showing interest to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So in this context, let's look into the Trans-Pacific Partnership and how the Trans-Pacific Partnership will benefit UK, and also look into the membership of India in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Even though India is not a member of Trans-Pacific Partnership, and it recently India is pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It has shown less interest to join in this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, so uh, this is the countries which are part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So Canada, USA, Mexico, so all these countries are part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Southern American countries, so they are, and the Asian countries are also part of this Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, so these are the countries which are part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, so let's get into the details of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So a Trans-Pacific Partnership is a trade agreement among 12 Pacific Rim Association countries. So countries which are part of the Pacific Ocean, and they share boundary with the Pacific Ocean, they are called as Pacific Rim Association countries. And this was signed in Auckland, New Zealand. Right? It was signed in Auckland, New Zealand in 2016. Okay, and it has not entered into force. So what are the goals of this Trans-Pacific Partnership? To promote economic growth, support the creation of and retention of jobs, enhance innovation, productivity, competitiveness, rise living standards, reduce poverty of our countries, promote transparency, good governance. So this include all the principles, objectives, and goals of Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is primarily a free trade area, or it is not a free trade agreement, but rather within the Trans-Pacific Partnerships, countries can engage in free trade agreement with one another, but it is not a free trade area. So what are the member countries of the Trans-Pacific Partnership? USA, Canada. We already discussed about the member countries of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So with respect to this, let's look into the this news article that UK willing to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So I mean, this is an important question. You might get a question in UPSC that which of the following country recently joined the Trans-Pacific Partnership? Okay, so UK is the latest country to join this partnership. This is a comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, right? So in the emerging world order, a growing importance for the Indo-Pacific as a construct, as a geostrategic construct, the growing importance for the Indo-Pacific region. Now more and more countries have been showing their willingness to join major groupings within the Indo-Pacific region. So the UK's willingness to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership is also part of it. So uh, the agreement will now need to be ratified by the CPTPP countries. Okay, because every country have a veto power. If UK wanted to join this Trans-Pacific Partnership, all the other countries should approve the joining of UK into the grouping. Okay. So, I mean, while making statements in UK Parliament, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak saying that they gave priority importance to the free trade because they give uh, priority to free trade, and so how this will benefit the UK. Uh, UK's move to join 11-member Asia Pacific Trading Bloc without UK. So this Trans-Pacific Partnership, 13% of the global GDP, it contributes to the 13% of the global GDP. Uh, and talks have been going on for uh, 12 months to join this group. Okay. So the next is, so deal would mean that more than 99% of British exports, including these exports, cars, chocolate, machinery, uh, claimed that deal would add another $8 billion, 8 billion euros to a UK economy. So this will benefit the UK economy. When a country is joining a trading bloc, then would a country's exports become more competitive, country's trade would increase, country could be able to give a fillip to its domestic economy, employment generation is also a possibility, and a larger inter-trans-Pacific intra-trans-Pacific partnership member countries. They have necessary technology, experience, expertise. They share their experiences with each other. So, in the long run, such organizations benefits the countries. So, therefore, they are showing willingness to join these organizations. Okay. So the next is the government. So this is a gateway to Indo-Pacific. As we already discussed that there has been a growing interest in the Indo-Pacific region, right? So Trans-Pacific Partnership could become a gateway to the Indo-Pacific region. In future, Indo-Pacific region alone account for 54% of the global economic growth. So this is a very significant statistic. So just Indo-Pacific region alone account for 54% of the global economic growth. You can imagine the potential of this Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so UK is currently also negotiating a free trade agreement with India. Remember earlier we have discussed that India has been in negotiation with for free trade agreement with Canada, European Union, and UK. So, in the context of UK's exit from the European Union, it is called as Brexit. It is important for United Kingdom to join such groupings so that it can increase its capacity in terms of trade and export competitiveness, right? The comprehensive and progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership member get a veto. So right. So and even interesting fact is China also shown interest to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It was applied for the membership in 2021. However, the US President, the then US President Donald Trump withheld the with so withdrawn from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So the Trans-Pacific Partnership was the earlier version of Comprehensive and Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. Okay, this is all about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. However, India is not a member of Trans-Pacific Partnership. Remember, India is also pulled out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership where ASEAN and another six countries together comprises of regional comprehensive economic partnership. So due to domestic concerns, India pulled out of the regional comprehensive economic partnership. So keeping in mind the same domestic concerns, India is shown unwillingness to join comprehensive and progressive trans-Pacific partnership. If it serves India's interests well, and if it makes India's exports more competitive, then certainly India will be part of this comprehensive and progressive trans-Pacific partnership. So let's look into the next news article. So the next news article is certain may be exempted from giving information under RTI Act. So what is certain? Certain is Computer Emergency Response Team India. So it is set up primarily to check the cyber security, the cyber threats. Okay, so it collaborates with the public sector, private sector. It issues advisories and guidelines to different stakeholders, and it makes it improves the cyber security preparedness of India, the Computer Emergency Response Team. So this will be exempted from the ambit of the Information Technology Act. Now let's try and understand why there is a need to exempt the Computer Emergency Response Team from the RTI Act, and what are the other organizations which were exempted from the ambit of the RTI Act. Remember, it is very important from the examination point of view, especially for prelims. The questions may come from these topics, like which of the following agencies exempted from the ambit of RTI. So remember this. Okay. So if we let's discuss this article. So certain may be exempted from giving information under RTI Act. RTI Act is Right to Information Act 2005. It is formulated to provide information about the functioning of the public organizations to citizens, so that the citizens can have a regular check on the functioning, and it instill greater accountability and transparency in the government organization. Okay, so center says that certain will be exempted from the RTI Act. So the Computer Emergency Response Team uh, uh, exempted from the uh, RTI Act, and so this is the government informed Parliament on Friday that yes, we are exempting uh, certain from the ambit of RTI Act. So Department of Personnel and Training reviewed a proposal. Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology sent a proposal to the Ministry of Personnel and Training that certain should be exempted from the ambit of RTI Act. So, so what are the other organizations which are exempted from the ambit of RTI? One is Central Bureau of Investigation, and second, Border Security Force. So these are the only two organizations which are exempted under the ambit of RTI Act: Central Bureau of Investigation and Border Security Force. So if certain also exempted from it, this will be the third organization. So this waiver will follow the agency to reject applications for information, even related to the policy matters. Even if it is related to the policy matters, then the certain will reject giving information for the information seekers, the citizens. Okay. So the exemption would allow certain to reject any application for information. So this is significant as the body. This body had earlier issued uh, that all the VPN and cryptocurrency data should be stored. Okay, all users' data should be stored and required VPN providers and cryptocurrency firms to preserve the data. However, the VPN providers and the cryptocurrency agencies uh, have opposed this move of preserving the data related to their transactions because it violates citizens' fundamental rights to privacy. Remember, right to privacy is a fundamental right under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And these directions of uh, preservation of data challenged in the Delhi High Court. And the government's argument is that absolute anonymity online is not acceptable. So, in online also, anonymity should not be absolute because of growing cyber threats, threat to you know growing cybersecurity threats, financial transactions, phishing, okay, malware, etc. So therefore, keeping this in mind, absolute anonymity is not acceptable. So after this direction, several VPN providers have pulled their services out of India, arguing that this direction would compromise users' privacy. They gave the primacy to users' privacy, so they pulled out of India. And what are the functions of certain? Where they have given certain functions of certain. So certain coordinates with public and private organizations in India. When cyber incidents like data breaches, ransomware attacks are reported. So it coordinates with public and private organizations, and it also issues advisories for software vulnerabilities as guidance for organizations. Right. So these are some of the functions of certain. Okay, let's discuss this Right to Information Act. So, Right to Information Act, remember, is part of Fundamental Right Article 19(1). Okay, Supreme Court in Rajnarayan versus State of Uttar Pradesh case, right to information will be treated as a fundamental right under Article 19. So, also remember Rajnarayan versus State of UP and fundamental right as part of Article 19(1). And what are the objectives of the Right to Information Act? It empowers citizens by providing citizens with information and promote transparency accountability in the working of the government organizations. It contain corruption, enhance people's participation in the democratic process. Okay, so uh, what are the reasons for the adoption of Right to Information Act? So there are the factors responsible for the adoption of Right to Information Act is corruption and scandals, international pressure and activism, modernization of and information, because nowadays society is mostly driven by the information. International pressure and activism is also one such reason for the introduction of Right to Information Act. Right, it largely prevents corruption and scandals in government organizations. So this is all about the Right to Information Act and Computer Emergency Response Team and its exemption from the ambit of RTI Act. So now look into the next news article. So the next news article is about the electoral bonds scheme. So first look into the concept of electoral bonds. What is electoral bonds? So what are electoral bonds? See, this is also very important for the examination point of view, especially for the prelims point of view. You may see a question in prelims on electoral bonds. So State Bank of India, only State Bank of India is authorized to issue and encash these electoral bonds. So electoral bonds are purchased anonymously by donors and are valid for 15 days from the date of issue. For example, electoral bonds are issued on 1st of January, and a donor, a person, an individual can buy an electoral bond, and the electoral bond will be valid for 15 days. That means up to January 15th they will be valid. Okay. So it is as a debt instrument. These can be bought by donors. Any Indian citizen can bought these electoral bond from a bank, designated bank, and donate it to a political party. So the political party can encash these bonds in a subsequent time period. So these can be redeemed only by an eligible party. For example, an individual buy an electoral bond for one political party, and only that political party can redeem the electoral bond with a designated account of the political party. See, the electoral bonds are issued by SBI and denominations of there will be 1,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, and 1 crore. So there is no, remember, there is no upper limit on electoral bonds. So the bonds are available for purchase by any citizen of India. So any citizen of India can purchase these bonds, and for a period of 10 days. The window period of 10 days will be provided, and any citizen can purchase these bonds. So January, April, July, October. These are the months where electoral bonds are issued for 10 days. So in the same way, recently the government on Friday issued 26th tranche of electoral bonds. Okay, this is the 26th time tranche of the electoral bond sale. Uh, so 10-day window period starting from April 3rd to April 12th at all authorized banks of, remember we said that electoral bonds are issued by only State Bank of India. Okay, only State Bank of India issues electoral bonds. And last year November, the scheme was amended. The electoral bond scheme was amended. See, remember, electoral bonds are introduced as part of the Finance Act 2017. So the scheme was amended by the center. For example, in case there are elections in a particular union territory with assembly, or in an assembly, the center can, at a last fortnight, extra fortnight, can issue such electoral bonds. The center have the power, not just during April, January, April, July, and October, but extra fortnight electoral bonds can also be issued by the center in case of uh, election in any state or any union territory with legislative assembly. So this is all about the electoral bonds scheme. So this is all for today, and thank you so much.